Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I am your host, Kim Barrett, and today we are joined by a three-peat offender. That's right. He's back for his third time. That is Mr. David Jenyns of Systemology. Now, if you're someone who wants systems in their business and you go, I just wish that things would work better, this is an episode you will not want to miss. We dive into systems, but also the adaptation and adoption of AI in business for systems as well. So if you're a business owner looking to implement systems in AI, you will not want to miss this. And of course, if you need help with your marketing systems and marketing AI, head over to our free Facebook community, www.joinmygroup.com.au, where you can get all that you need there and more. Until then, let's jump into the show. Mr. David Jenyns, sir, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
An absolute pleasure to be back, Kim.
I know. I think you might be the first three-peat. I'm pretty sure. I think we've had you on twice at least. So this will be the third time. So it's always great to have you. So if I've got to ask some slightly different questions to normal, because guys, if you haven't already, go back and listen to those first couple of episodes with Dave that we've done as well. But what's been happening since we've last spoke? AI has taken over the world. Everything's changed. What's been happening in the world of the systems man?
Yeah, well, I think that whole AI revolution hit us hard and hit us early. So when I saw ChatGPT come out, I started using it. And then very quickly I thought, look, I've got to share this with our systemologists. And they basically help business owners roll some of this thinking out inside other businesses. And we were showing them how you could literally just take a transcript of a process that had been recorded and feed it into ChatGPT and then ask it to draft the first version of a process. And I shared that, and almost instantly I kind of knew that a big part of our business was going to die. And I'd say within 3 months we had a documentation service that we actually offered to these systemologists where they would send in raw recordings and we would send back the first draft of these processes, because it was always a big sticking point for the systemologists. And as soon as we showed them the new technology, within 3 months, all of that work dried up. We had a team of 7 documenters, and I was really left with a challenging situation. We tried to place some of those team members into different roles, and 1 or 2 I was able to, but very clearly we were heavily overstaffed, and I had to let some of those team members go. And it really, for a moment there, I was questioning a lot about what do we do? What is the value that systems and processes bring in an AI world? What other parts of our business were just going to disappear? And I kind of really tried to future pace where I could see things going. And fortunately, like my team and I, we did end up doubling down on the idea of process, which we recognized that process really ends up becoming the programming for the machines. And even with all of these new tools that come out, you have to get very clear on who are you serving and what is the core tasks that you and your team complete to deliver value through to those clients. And once you've got clarity around that and you've got your processes clear, then it's about asking that question, how can AI help me do that faster, cheaper, and better? So it was a challenging situation to try and navigate through. And I feel certain industries have been hit a lot quicker than others. So I obviously felt it right on the front line as soon as our whole process part of the business started to change and evolve. And then we've got, other clients that might be tradies and they're on the tools and they're going, I can't see how this AI revolution's going to hit us because we're out there fixing pipes and, working on houses, and the robots, they're not going to come for some time. But I think a lot of the back office stuff very clearly is starting to change. Quoting, handling inquiries, a lot of finance related tasks. Everything's been getting turned on your head. I'm curious to know if you see that in your world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and as you said at the start there, I think obviously the action of some of the stuff that a lot of people used to do has definitely changed, but you've got to have the ability to program it, to do it. It's the same as like going, oh, we'll onboard 10 VAs into our business and it will make our jobs easier. And it's like, but someone's still got to train the VAs, right? Someone's still got to have the overarching system and process for them to go through. It's not just like, chuck AI into your business and it changes overnight. It's like there's still got to be all that training and education and knowledge bases built for it to operate off of, which is, I think, the piece that a lot of people are missing is like the work to set it up is still relatively time consuming and a big piece in comparison to like what it will be like once it's done. But that still has to happen. And as you said, for tradies and other business owners like that, similarly, it's like, it's not necessarily the exact work that you do is going to be taken over by a robot. But if someone can have a AI appointment setter that answers their phone immediately when tradies never normally get back to you, someone that can automate the quotation process, integrate it with your service mate or whatever it might be, and speed up all of the previous like inefficiencies within a business, that's where I think the big pieces will come, and those that adopt them will just be able to obviously have better margins, which means that they could, if they want to, take more market share, scale faster, things like that, versus people that like put their head in the sand a little bit and go, oh, it's not going to affect my industry. It might not affect the specific work, but I think the business behind it, as you so greatly do, like the systems behind it, like that sort of thing. I think if people were adopting it in those spaces, it's just going to make everything 10 times easier. I know for us now, literally every time my team come to me, they're like, so we do, for example, briefing for clients where we brief graphic and design team. We still use that. I don't really like the too AI affected graphics because then everyone's ads start looking the same. I'm already seeing it now. Everyone's got a similar style. And I'm like, I like to have ours as unique still. So we keep that little bit, but they're like, oh, we spend this amount of time briefing. I was like, cool. Well, let's put that whole system and process that we use to create the brief into our own custom GPT tool. Let's use that to be able to generate that and bring that time down, so that if you say to me, oh, cool, I've got all this time now and I can think of new strategy, creative ideas, etc., I'd much rather you have that than spending 10 hours a week working through briefs and things like that. If we could do that automated in 5 minutes, like that would just be way easier from that perspective. So yeah, I think speeding up people's efficiencies is huge from that perspective.
We have an accounting client who went through, her very first job out of school was at McDonald's. So she'd been programmed from day dot that process was a real key piece when it comes to growing and scaling business. So she'd documented a lot of her business and got very clear on all of the key tasks. And as this AI revolution sort of started rolling in, she was ready to go, because the question to ask is, what are we currently doing that AI can do faster, cheaper, and better? She cherry-picked a lot of the time-consuming tasks where it didn't feel like the human was adding much value. And then she worked with an automation specialist to basically share her standard operating procedures and said, oh, can you help me automate this? Just one of the tasks where she had a team member that would log into the ATO portal for every client every week to confirm what the messages were being sent through from the Australian Tax Office. And then that would get communicated through to the client. Very time-consuming task. Had the process well documented, paired it up with an automation specialist, built a robot that logs in, does all of this crawling, logs it into a spreadsheet, and then the human does a quick look over the top before send. And she's basically saved herself close to 1,000 hours per year on this particular task. And that's just one of hundreds of tasks that were going on inside her business. And I think that's the opportunity that is in front of many business owners. And just like you said, very low-hanging fruit using custom GPTs. If you take a process and you've got some of the output of that process, maybe it's a proposal or whatever it might be, feeding that into a custom GPT and converting that standard operating procedure into some instructions for that GPT, and then having very specific, with very specific use cases and tasks for a GPT. It's just, you can get tremendous wins. And we're seeing this disruption in every industry, every role, every team member. There are these level of opportunities. The business owner just needs to be aware of what's going on in the business. That's, I think, where a lot of people get stuck. They see some of these AI tools and there's so many of them, it's easy to get overwhelmed, and they can do so many things. You don't know where to start. And oftentimes business owners will go, oh, hey, ChatGPT can now create a graphic of a cat holding my logo standing on the moon. This is fantastic. And I think the takeaway here is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like, business fundamentals are still key here. What are those core tasks that you are doing? And then getting AI to really start to complete some of those tasks.
100%. And I think, as you said there, like, I know I've already had conversations with people that have said, I can't keep up. I'm already too overwhelmed with what's out there. And, you know, if we think of like the adoption of AI and how things move and how fast it's going to be, it's not going to be I think that's what's going to slow down a lot of the adoption for a lot of different businesses. Because as you said, even the business owner, you've got all the other things in your head of the business. And then you've got to go, okay, cool. Now I've got to wrap around not only just ChatGPT. Now, you know, like when you automatically start a Google Meets, you've got Gemini trying to take notes for you. You've got all these things like forcing themselves into your world to be a part of it. You know, you go on X, you've got Grok, everything's just popping up all over. It is super overwhelming. So you do also have to have the team to have the ability, I think, to be able to roll those things in and see what works where. So, for example, all of our systems and processes we use in ClickUp, we also use Slack for communication, and we have our own custom GPTs. And even for my team, I think they're even a bit going like, okay, so if I do want to do this though, which platform is it an AI I'm trying to build in Slack to help me with communication with clients there? Or is it in ClickUp to help with our processes there? Or is it our own GPT that we have to then educate? Like, even our own team are going, hang on, you know, and we're trying to stay on top of this as much as possible. They're going like, which way do we go? So I think not only is it for the business owner, but, and I know you're very big on this, having the team buy-in and the culture buy-in to be like, cool, you know, you've always been like systems first. And it's, now I think it's like, systems and AI first, and being like, how do we use that to drive our business forward? And also, I suppose, the team members, we're worried about their jobs, but to go, cool, this will just make you more efficient. Like, use it for your own efficiencies. I'd much rather people be like, I've got heaps of capacity, rather than being like, I have no capacity and I'm using nothing and I'm doing everything manually.
Yeah. That lady I was talking about, that accountant lady, she said something to me a couple of months ago. I thought, isn't that interesting? Where she previously, it was quite common in a lot of the accounting space, where they would move their back office staff and they'd go to the Philippines or India, and because very process driven cultures, and they would just get these back office tasks complete and then it would come back onshore. She's completely changing the way that she thinks about this now. She's bringing a lot of the jobs back locally onshore. She wants higher skilled team members that leverage AI, and that's how she makes them more productive and is able to pay for the higher wages that they want, being Australian based staff, but she can do it by getting more out of them. And I think that's a good way to think about AI. It doesn't necessarily make average team members great. What it does is it makes, you know, great team members amazing, because they already know what good looks like. And that's part of the challenge with AI, is you ask it for something, and then when it serves back a result, you need to be able to modify it and adjust it and reprompt it and ask different questions to get the great outcome. So that was one big thing. And another thing that you mentioned there, something that I'm seeing, it's actually to do with the topic of my next book, which is Systems Champion. The Systems Champion, which is a real key role in building up systems culture, for many reasons that we touched on. Business owners being very busy, they're not always the best people to be documenting process. They're not necessarily even process people. So having a right-hand man or woman that is your systems champion really ensures that this happens and you keep moving it along. But that role now is evolving more and more into a systems and AI champion, because we're finding that the systems champion has great visibility across the organization, and they understand what are the key tasks in the different departments and how some of the departments overlap. And then it enables them to see the opportunity because, again, an SOP really is just an instruction for the machines. You're telling the machines what it is that you want done. Sometimes it's a human that's completing that SOP. Sometimes it's a machine that's completing that SOP. But you first have to get very clear on that. And it's not a very big step after that to then go, let's create a custom GPT or let's chat with an automation specialist who can, automate this part of the role. So they're very naturally coming together.
Yeah, no, I love that. Very quick sidebar question though I have to ask. Are you polite with AI? Are you a please and thank you kind of person, or are you do it now?
I'm a please and thank you to start with. And then once I kind of get in, because look, you got to be careful. You don't know if the machines do rise up and enslaving humanity. I want to make sure that they remember that I was very polite to them.
That's what I say as well. I'm like, look, if there is that off chance, when I have my please and my thank yous, and if you don't mind, just have that extra level in there, you got to be done. And how have you found, obviously, as you said, you've got a new book coming out talking about the systems champion. How have you found people? Because obviously even, change being systems, right, can be hard for people to adapt to, let alone systems and AI. And they always say, people, I read I can't remember, I saw a quote somewhere the other day, someone mentioned it, where it was people only dislike change if it's change that they haven't asked for, right? If it's something where they're oh, cool, yeah, now I've got to deal with this. So I know obviously you're really big on getting that buy-in. How have you found getting people not only to buy into systems, but combining that as well with AI?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we do is we try and remove excuses. And this is kind of one of the core thinking blocks inside the New Systems Champion book, which is why don't people follow process, and getting very clear on that. And then we try and do the excuse removal on that. So for example, the three main reasons people don't follow process. One is they don't know how to do something. They might not have actually followed a particular task because they didn't know how to do that task. The next one is they didn't know it was expected of them, which if it's not clearly articulated that it's your job and it has to be done on this particular day, then that's a very easy excuse to fall back on. And then the last one is I don't want to. So what we try and do is strategically work on each of those to remove them. So the I don't know how comes down to having very clear processes documented and very easily accessible at the point at which they're doing the task. So that way they don't have the excuse, because if they say, I don't know how, you can say, well, there's a link to a system or a process here and it explains exactly how. So there goes that excuse. Then the second excuse is, I didn't know it was my job. That often has a lot to do with the way that you manage your responsibilities and assign out tasks. You mentioned ClickUp a little bit earlier, some form of project management or task management software, which very clearly articulates who is doing what by when. Then that can remove the excuse of, I didn't know it was expected of me. I didn't know when it was due, like all of those type of excuses. And then finally, it comes to the most challenging, which is the I don't want to. And that resistance typically comes from your existing team members. New team members, there's a lot less of that resistance if you recruit and onboard correctly. But for existing team members, if they're used to doing things a certain way, the question is, well, why do I need to change? Maybe they like the idea that you don't really know what it is that they're doing, and they've created a little bit of a black box, which gives them some sort of job security, so they don't want to do it this particular way. So one of the first things that you need to do is really help them understand how this will benefit them, which from an AI perspective, it's actually now is a great time to adopt a systems mindset, because you can show them how AI makes their job easier and how they can get more done. And hey, here's how Gemini and ChatGPT can help draft that follow-up customer email that you always found a little bit frustrating, and it does it really, really quickly. So anytime that you can show them that it benefits them, you're much easier to get them on board. And longer term, like the real secret here is to actually recruit systems-driven people and have that as something that you look out for when you're hiring. Like, you want to find someone who's going to fit into your culture and understands you have a way of doing things, and they're happy to kind of toe the line. In the book, I share a great psychological experiment they ran in 1962, where they had a range of actors standing in an elevator facing the wrong way. And then the unsuspecting participant would hop into that elevator and they would turn and face the wrong way, even though they knew that it was the wrong way. And the reason that they did it is because everybody else was doing it. And that reveals like something very powerful about human nature and how people just want to fit in, and they want to go with whatever the norm is. They don't want to stick out. So you just want to make sure when someone steps into the elevator of your business that everybody's facing the right way, that there are processes and ways of doing things, and we just have a system for creating systems, or we have every task in our organization is done this particular way. It's much easier for someone at day one to kind of fall into line once you've got that in place. So this new book actually places a bit of emphasis on your recruitment and your onboarding process.
Awesome. Absolutely love that. And I think that's like the big thing that I always have been saying to my team as well is like with the adoption of this, and the reason why, because sometimes with AI, I think people are like, oh, what do I need a system or a process for? Like, I just use AI to do it. And I'm like, cool. But what happens on the day that it's down? Like ChatGPT has gone down. Some of these platforms have gone down for a day. You can't just put your hands up in the air and be like, oh, sorry, no work can be done today because of this. So you still need to have the systems and processes there, even if it's just for educating your AI tools. But also then if something happens, your team can still execute and follow along, and still use their critical thinking rather than, because I feel like there's going to be some people, as you said, where a average/good employee does not become great with AI. It's just that they get slightly more efficient versus someone who can still actually think, has the system and process mindset to follow. And then like, if something does happen, cool, I just followed the system and process that we taught the machine to do, and I can do the same thing.
Yeah. And it's almost like the system and the process is the glue that helps stick a bunch of other tasks together. Like, what do we do first? What do we do second? Okay, well, we're emailing the client with this onboarding questionnaire. Once that comes in, then we take that and then we go over to AI and we run it through AI to get this particular output. And then we take the output and then we move it over here. So we're not yet at a point, and look, I'm sure at some point we will get to where these autonomous agents are a lot more intelligent and can jump between different platforms. To get to there, even when we do get there, you're still going to have to tell these systems and AI what to do. So that's where I realized that process will always have a part, because process really is just an instruction. It's a way of saying, this is the way that we do things here, or this is the way a particular thing is done. So I think that was probably one of my biggest takeaways. But the speed at which this is changing is extraordinary. Like the new tools that come out and what it can do, I feel like investing in your process and then looking for those AI opportunities is some of probably the lowest hanging fruit for business owners right now.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. And obviously, like Dave, you and I could chat about AI and systems and stuff all day, but I'll make sure we keep this concise for everyone listening. So I'd love to know your new book coming out. When's it available? Where can people kind of find out about it?
Yes. So it comes out at the end of July 2025, depending on when you're listening to this, but best place is just to head over to Amazon.com. You can search for Systems Champion, or if you head over to systemology.com, that's my website. We'll link through there. If you're listening to this also, you might be an audio book person. You'll be happy to know I just last week popped into the studio and did the audio version of the book as well. So that'll be on Audible.
Love a good audio book. I'll definitely be getting mine on there as well. Love to build up my Audible library. And so guys, if you're listening to this and you know someone maybe that's been a bit hesitant to work on their systems and processes and maybe a little bit hesitant to adapt and adopt with all the AI changes that are coming, please share this with them. Just for the fact if they can change their viewpoint slightly would be hugely beneficial for them and their business. As Dave shared some great examples of changes that people have made and how efficient it can help you be in your business. And again, as we've both said, it's not about replacing jobs, but how can we make our people more efficient? How can we deal with more capacity and like open that up for people? So I think that's hugely powerful. Dave, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
No, look, the main thing is, and the biggest insight in the new book is finding the team member that helps you do it. If you're a business owner listening to this, you don't need to be a systems person or like documenting process to own a systems-driven business. It's very common for visionary founders that aren't great at process. It's very common for that to be the case. But the key is to find your right champion, someone in your organization who takes this on board and helps move you closer and closer. Because we all agree that systems-driven businesses are just better businesses. Like you can't argue the point. They're better for clients. They're better for staff. They're better for partners. They're better for the bottom line. So obviously they're better for business owners.
Nice. Love that. So guys, please share this message around. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed so you can hear some great people that are sharing their knowledge like Mr. Dave here. Thank you so much, guys. The links that we've mentioned will be in the show notes, so you can make sure you go and check those out and get around. I know I'll be getting a copy and giving a copy to some of my team as well. We do a book of the month club, so that's probably going to be the book of the month for August, I reckon, is getting everyone to listen there. So thank you again, Dave, so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Always a pleasure. Good to see you, Kim.
You too. Cheers.